Yeah, I'm good. I left for a little while and I came back, and what was a bunch of homeless encampment that kind of cleared out a little bit is now tripled in size, and it's getting pretty dangerous around here. So that's a little weird, but other than that, it's okay.
Seems like they've just been kind of shifting from one area to another. They get cleared out over here, they move back over here.
Yeah. People talk about zombies a lot, but they're not the undead. They're just on meth, And
Yeah.
And they were on meth all last night, and now they're not on meth. That's really what it is. But it's a weird place to be when those are your neighbors. You know what I mean? But let's get to it, man. I'm putting out a ton of content right now, and I have a bunch of new stuff, new courses, and I'm actually starting this complete practitioner program for everybody.
Ooh.
And it's the most common thing that people have always kind of noted about, when they come train with me, is the fact that I seem kind of like an encyclopedia of martial arts exercises and systems.
Sure. Right.
And so I'm teaching the kind of framework around why I was invited to, 50 schools a year for, 10, 15 years. Is like, it was because of that fun fact of like, I don't believe in right or wrong. I believe in let's try to figure out how to use it. And that kind of made people share a lot with me. So
Right.
I'm sharing that framework, how to learn how to use your body as a learning machine and balance. So it's going to be
Learning
machine. Learning machine. Yeah. So and I'm doing case studies, and I'm starting live workshops, I think, in 2 weeks. And the first live workshop is going to be the one thing that everyone needs right now, which is body work. How to help each other out.
Super cool. I like all those exercises we used to do in class.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, partner work. Because even if you went off to the old wrestling schools and the Kalari schools, they would do a couple weeks of training and kind of realigning the body before you would get to work. So let's start at the beginning and do that. So that's what I'm doing. But okay, so we are leaving I don't even know
the water
anything
snake moon. That's kind of the point.
Okay.
As I've been talking to clients this moon, it's like, really, there's, it's been a yin moon, right? And a yin year, obviously. The metal ox is very forward going, very strong, but it's in this kind of yin way. It's not in the busting down barriers as much as it is tapping into the momentum of things that have already existed for a very long time.
Okay.
So that's the backdrop, just reminding everybody of the backdrop of the year itself. The year itself isn't really about anything new.
Okay.
The year itself is about all the things that have ever existed that are fairly well established in the momentum behind those things. So
all right, let's start back over. So let's talk people through this. It is...
we're getting ready to leave the water snake moon.
And then we're going into...
the wood horse moon. Okay,
and as... Tech Jesus, also known as the worldwide computer web thing, cut you off. You're talking about yin and a yin and a yin,
Jesus.
And we shouldn't know what's going on anay. So.
A yin and yin and a yin. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest aspects of, for instance, there's fire, tiger, chi, and somebody's got to represent the typhoon.
Okay.
Some chi has got to represent the sort of just mindlessly destructive kinds of chi that occur in nature. This is all part of nature.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the water snake chi is a representation of the blow to the head and the complete unknown. The thing that you can never quantify, describe accurately, but is just an enormous influence on your life. And it essentially makes you who you are, but there's no way you could really describe it. And I think in some ways, when you have a water snake, especially considering that snakes in general are a fire, are a fire chi, a yin fire chi.
Okay.
Then you add water to that situation. It adds to a lot of perhaps confusion, perhaps a kind of, I'm not sure what the hell is going on. I'm just trying to follow along without necessarily knowing what's going on. And that's why in the beginning of that particular talk, we talked about just surrender, just really just surrender, don't fight it. Because whatever is self-evidently going to emerge, and whatever it is that's actually the case, it should be pretty obvious to you. And those are the things that you really want to be in continuance with. You don't want to swim against that kind of tide, right?
Yeah.
So as I've been talking to a lot of clients about, like, don't try to figure it out. Like, really, seriously, like whatever influences that have been kind of coming forward in this particular moon are probably very, very old in your life. Old memories, past friends, all these things kind of coming forward that you thought were irrelevant. You thought that was, that's old news. Now suddenly becomes, front and center. So those sorts of revisitations is all part of the retrospection that's available in Ox year. It's very important to recognize it. Like, we're not looking forward, we're looking back. It's important to look back. And so this water snake moon was both a looking back as a way of, manifesting where we are, and also what the potentialities of this summer are. And so there could have been like a little bit of, people feeling kind of cooped up, people feeling kind of a little bit held back. And so now we're switching to yang. And what we had in the development, the self-cultivation capacities within the water snake were really profound, like just in terms of like, what are you really committed to? How do you want to go about it? What do you really want to devote yourself to going forward? What is the potential for the legacy that you want to leave behind? Like, what's the point of doing all this work? Is it just so you could, feed your family? Like, what is it that's really in your deepest essence, like motivating you, to do the things you do?
Let's talk about work. Let's go. If it's all about fundamentals, let's go super cliche astrology. All right.
Oh, please.
Work.
Go. What's it about?
Yeah.
Well, what I would say in terms of work, the important thing to understand is that in the horse moon, it's all about forward motion.
Okay.
The horse moon and the fifth moon is a yang expression of summer. This is where we get the summer solstice. This is where yang is going to peak, at this particular point in the season.
Hasn't there been like 5 solstices already like this year? I feel like every time I turn around, someone's telling me it's the solstice.
It's either that or a blood moon, it's either that or some sort of eclipse.
Okay.
Some sort of special time to state your intention.
Okay. So we're
let go of the past.
So forward motion, we're going. And then who's anything that people need to look out for in this?
Oh,
in their work.
Particularly in the first weekend, not the weekend that we're currently in that we're recording this, but next weekend could be. I mean, there's quite a lot of potential for accident, big time accidents to the point of calamity. Like watch your pace. Watch your pace, because for the most part, they've had this water chi kind of feeling like we're a little bit pent up, not really feeling like we're actually cultivating any momentum at all. But we are, we are actually following along with the season. But if we're sort of disappointed, in how much we feel like we should be doing more, then, the wood horse moon is a great opportunity to make a serious mess of things.
May I give a solution to that?
Slow down.
I've been slacking on my journal course. I'm taking a journal course, but one thing that really helps me out is doing the weekly email, right? And then some people might have an accountability group or something, right? But when you feel like you're not doing anything, just find a friend and just be like, hey, or write down what you have done, like, because I'll put out these emails, and some of my emails lately have been super long, and there's crazy like this and this and this and this, and I'm like, shit, I gotta slow down. But when I'm going into that email, all I'm thinking is, God, I haven't done anything. I haven't done anything this week. And then next thing you know, it's like I got 3 courses coming out and talks, and then I'm building this, and I'm going to this thing, and then this thing is happening. But to me, it feels like nothing's happening. So I feel that this is a time to reach out and just list what you've done, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you don't feel trapped.
That's a good reflection. I mean, considering that like it, a water snake moon is going to really feel like nothing's happening. Because as I sort of stated throughout my writings and at the beginning of the moon, think long periods of stillness with some punctuated action.
Okay.
Right. So I've been, I'm going to feel into this and like, work on things in a really small way. And then boom, 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 I do 4 things in a row. And then I go back to long periods of rest. And like, that's kind of more the pace of what was offered in the water snake moon.
Okay.
During this process, like there's a capacity to cultivate maturity. Like it may feel like nothing's really happening, but we're actually developing discipline, in that process where we're actually kind of steadily, learning to apply ourselves in a way, even if we have rest and then a bunch of activity in that process, we're actually working on our discipline habits, cultivating our maturity, how we use our energy, like reducing our number of tangents, sweeping off the things that actually really don't matter. I'm going to focus on these 3 things, not being so broad, like kind of focusing in. And that would be the opportunity in the cultivation of that. And also how we show up for others, realizing that there are places, this moon of the water snake, we found like deep places of resonance with others. And so there was a place to actually really connect and team up and actually really work on like a project going forward together, finding mutuality. All of those things were really excellent opportunities in this moon. So if we kind of collected up all those sorts of levels of maturity, character, how to show up for people, and how to follow through, specifically how to follow through on projects, not just saying a half-ass start something and then be like, I'm going to try this now. Like really actually figure out what it is you're connected to, what your motivations are, and how to actually really follow through on something. No, kind of cultivating all those things would be absolutely crucial to surviving, the wood horse moon, because it's going to be full on. It's like yang is full on. It's going to burst forward. And so avoiding impulse and keeping our focus are the 2 biggest things that we can do for ourselves. Because if you feel like nothing's happening and you feel kind of like repressed or kind of held back in this moon, it's going to spring forward. And, like if you're trying to ride bareback on a pony and you got nothing to hold on to, it's just going to throw you. Which is why, using the metaphors of like a balloon, right? If I'm just blowing hot air with no container, then I'm not really creating anything. I'm just maybe exhausting myself. But if I actually have some sort of container that I'm trying to apply myself to, but the pace of how I do that, if I blow up suddenly, then it might pop, right? So I'm basically trying to stabilize as I grow. And so once we get to the 5th moon, it's going to be sudden growth. It's already starting to happen. Some of the chinos are shifting ahead of the moon. So it's going to be kind of sudden expansion. So we're not really, if we don't know how to handle that kind of vigor and how to apply it in a responsible and mature way, then expect to make a mess of things. And that could be, small messes, or it could be, kind of catastrophic. If you're actually just really letting it cut loose in the 5th moon, then it's a tricky thing thinking about yang at its peak, right? You either get things that come into that become ripe, or things that rot, because it gets overexposed or it gets too much chi, then it burns and then you can't use it, right? So this is the kind of fine line, once we get to a place of the solstice, and once we're seeing yang ascend so rapidly, toward the plateau, then we need to be careful. We need to know how to rest. We know how to nourish ourselves. You don't floor the engine, right? You don't like just open up the throttle. You need to know how to, otherwise you know, destroy the engine, right? So like, that's kind of the edge that we're approaching. That's the place we're going into when we're going into the fifth moon. So it's our discipline, our focus, and like actually actively choosing, staying away from, you know, impulse, things that kind of help us get, like too many distractions, or, you know, if we're chasing distractions, like we could, you know, we could end up with, specifically, I'm thinking about like if people just want to like cut loose and like be, you know, in a period of distraction, end up with like illness, essentially, from the Chinese perspective, is because you're overextending yourself and you're exposing yourself in an environment in certain kinds of conditions that open up your channels, and, you know, and then contagion comes through. So that is actual risk as yang approaches this peak and expands. There's a vulnerability in that, and that's the thing that always goes in hand, you know, because as yang peaks, yin is always present, you know, and it's this theme. When it's responsible, it's the theme. The yin's presence in yang's peak, when yang peaks, is thinking about legacy, knowing that what is all this productivity and growth for? That step. That's the presence of yin, and that should temper like your behavior. Well, I need to make sure that I follow through, so I have something to leave to the next generation, or I have something to leave. You know, I have something to show for all my work.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of like burning the candle at both ends, kind of thing.
What about, I mean, in the mindfulness course, I have the Matt Lucas Quick Guide, and it just basically just says, excitement makes you careless because everything's fun until it isn't, you know, and it's that moment of just saying, that motorcycle looks really cool. I really want to go fast on a motorcycle, but like take a second and ask yourself, have you had the discipline and focus in order to do it? And it's always weighing your risk and reward, right? And
right.
And knowing that just because I think we're a little bit disconnected right now from barrier to entry, right? And so
a little bit,
yeah. So a lot of times we think, yeah, but I want to do it, you know, and then and you get excited, and then we feel pinned up. I think you described wood horse, you know, it's like as the young horse running out of the pen, you know, and
just jumping and wildly without. Yeah, I mean, as Ming said that, you know, in of 5 types of horses, right? If you imagine all 5 lining up for a race, right? The fire horse jumps the fence immediately, not interested in boundaries, right? Yeah. But the wood horse follows him.
Oh yeah.
Like, where are we going? You know, yeah. So it's like that kind of distractibility, you know, that comes through, and you know, it's fascinating because like I have a friend that, and I know you know people with horses, and like when you ever get next to a horse, like there's a tremendous. I mean, they're all muscle. Yeah. But there's a tremendous amount of vulnerability, you know, both in their countenance, but just in the surface of their skin, you know, they're like constantly vibrating with energy. And that was a really good teaching moment to think about, because it's oftentimes you think in the cycle of time, the movement from, you know, snake to horse is like the invisible and non-material, and then all material. But there's still a connection between these two things. It's not so binary, you know. So like even in because the horse, yes, is definitely materialistic and forward-moving, production-oriented, work for work's sake activity. But when you're thinking about it in the course of the season, in the summer, it also speaks to this kind of vulnerability of like everything being absolutely on edge and absolutely completely awake. It's like that perfect level of caffeine.
Well, a horse is a fight or flight animal. You know what I mean? It's big and it's bad, but it is ready to.
But it will jump.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically in the Matt Lucas Quick Guide. It just says treat the world like a horse or a small dog. You know, and it's because like horses, small dogs, they're easily startled. So you have to manage your energy when you're around that. So I think that's a good thing. Is like imagine everything you're doing as you're walking up to a horse or a small dog.
Yeah, so a lot of like the things I've been talking about with people is like, you know, listen, take your time with the events of this last moon. You know, don't assume that like, well, that was weird and you're on to something else. Like, take some time to digest these things, and actually they're meaningful. even if you don't have a full picture, it's about how you can apply them with discipline, and don't think that all it needs to happen overnight, or you have to be on top of it, like, and it has to have meaning, and it has to have, production value, like, right away. It's really, you have to let it naturally unfold, because, a wood horse can be a really enjoyable time of, like, exploration. I guarantee you everybody's going to be like, wow, it just feels like we turned a whole page. Like, everything feels fresh, and energized. I feel like multitask. Go ahead. There's plenty of chi, so go ahead and, like, have 4 or 5 things you do today. There'll be more of a latitude for that. But definitely, make sure that you're, in bed at a reasonable hour, and making sure you get all the rest. It's often said that the character for summer in Chinese is basically a pictogram of a person resting. Okay. So that tells you everything you need to know about the Chinese understanding of summer. Like, summer, you should have done all the hard work already, and now it's just about kicking back and, like, letting it unfold, because there's no reason to push. Pushing right now would be, in the 5th moon, would actually be potentially disastrous. You might push it over the edge. You have to consider that you've already really done the work. It doesn't. So in the horse moon, it might take a little nudge, get it going. But there's a lot of momentum behind the scenes. We don't have to put high octane into the situation. It's not necessary.
Okay.
Have fun with it. Have some fun with it, but also, keep your discipline. Kind of cut down on the distractions. Know what it is you want to invest your energy into.
Any signs that need to, because it's like all astrology. When people listen, they always want health, wealth. There's buried or married. I was reading through my writing when I was asking you, when I came up with buried or married. The other version was from my natural. I was like, I got to find a more PG way of saying this, but it was who's fucked and who's fucking. That was the original one. Fucked or fucking. But I realized that buried or married is a little bit cleaner. So I apologize, cleaner, everyone, but welcome to my world. It's got to start there and slowly get, because I just realized, like, I'm always in my own little bubble.
But you're always speaking to all the people. So some people get buried and married. Some people get the other one.
And probably I'm accidentally just gonna. This is the children's version that I'll use the other term. But so it's like you got the health, you got the wealth. So we got the work, but it's like, are there any people? Is there anything that, any signs or any things that should be careful through this one? Who's gonna be shining? Who's all power this time around? Snakes and dragons,
they're going. Most of the things will feel effortless during this time, because all the lights are on. So it's just as forward as you can go. This is horses. This is probably the time where they think they can do the most. But also everybody needs to remember is the condition and the relationship between a wood horse moon, and a metal ox year. So there is a kind of elemental antagonism there, but it's also a learning process. So there might be some school of hard knocks involved, like where you're like, I overdid it on that, or I overinvested in this, or I wasn't really paying attention. It's really, I can't emphasize this enough. It's about paying attention to what you're doing and following through, like, even if it seems boring, like really actually follow through all the way, with that situation, with whatever it is that you're doing, and maybe even going back over it, like you're guaranteed to miss something the first time around, but you go through the second or third time, you catch more as you go through. And so those sorts of disciplined habits, anybody who has those, from dogs to even rats, in a horse moon, typically don't do very well. But like, I would encourage rats to just step back and focus on their habits of being thorough. And that's how they'll get through this moon, because rats are most likely going to feel like there's too many things happening. And that's probably the case, particularly coming out of the snake moon into the horse moon. because there probably will be a lot of things happening. And so it's going to feel like there's a lot of noise. But let's see. And anybody is kind of sensitive to sort of those level of stimulations, even roosters, this might be a little bit overstimulated for them. And monkeys should, listen to their sixth sense and chill, recede, during this time. But I think those monkeys are kind of managing themselves well, might find, or had difficulty in this last moon, might find some reprieve in like the things that they can go out and do. But this is a time for fulfillment across the board. Everybody, I would encourage people to go forward into fulfillment. But fulfillment, remember all the springtime dreams we had? Like this is the time to actually, what was it I really wanted? And remind yourself and like put all the pieces together, even if you got to put it together quickly. Be as thorough as you can, because like this is the time to actually build the kite and fly it. Not to study piano, but to actually learn a performance, as Ming would say, like actually apply, not just continue to tinker, but like actually go forward and go through with something. This is the time to do it. This is definitely the time to do it.
Let's take a pause for my plugs. All right, take a situational awareness course. I just had a dear friend, their kid got brought into their, there's been a lot of crime. So there's
been so much crime.
So much crime.
In the Bay.
Crime.
It's a big problem.
Yeah. And
it's going to get worse. I'm just saying.
It's
it's the summertime is the worst time in the Bay for crime.
Yeah, I used my two, even in the email I put it out, like I used my two courses. I used situational mindfulness and then the nonviolent communication.
I read that email about how you...
Yeah, I just walked out and said hi to people and they like look and they leave, right? And so it's always about, like it's not, there's no drama. Like even one of the companies that I work for, they originally at the beginning of all this lockdown, they were like, we were talking about how things are going to get violent, and I was like, they need to learn situational awareness, and people are like, no, they need firearms training. And then now, as time's gone on, it's taken some experts over a year to realize, no, you just need situational awareness. And yes, a gunfight is really fun to watch on television, but I have a funny feeling none of us really want to do that.
Be one.
And none of us really want to get in those situations. So I can't stress enough how important it is to get with anyone, me, someone else, but take these courses.
Agree, yeah.
And
I
then
100% agree. Yeah.
And live workshops are going to start up in 2 weeks, so people need to stay on top of me.
When is that going to happen?
I'm going to start putting out. So I'm starting to do the literature and so every live course, every live workshop is going to have video to go with it, so it can fortify what we're learning. And then in the live sessions, it's going to be the kind of the case studies to where we can learn more, ask questions, and then that can actually make everything happen. So I'll be doing next level Yama, beginning Yama, and all these other things. So anyways, I'm just kind of plugging this stuff. People get in there, you interact with us right now.
I say it's like it's a good time to follow through on things, but also given some of the dynamics of the relationship between the year and the moons themselves, it's also a good time to begin learning things at the same time. Like, so people want Horseman is very physical, like I highly encourage people to like move their bodies and like get out there and improve their health for sure. The thing about the health question though is also stay out of the sun. As it, and most in Chinese thought, like it's because it's too hot. Once you get too hot, then you're actually vulnerable to contagion. Much more vulnerable to contagion in that way. The wind.
It's funny you say that, because I'm always around people that want to like go eat in the sun, and I'm like, no, I don't do that. And I'm fire dragon, fire rabbit, fire everything, you name it, I'm fire. And I mean, I used to work out in the middle of a field in it. Atlanta, Florida, all over. And I mean, just in no trees around, and I would just train there. It made me a little aggressive, and I would do it 3-4 hours, and in the dirt and in the sun, and it's just not good. And the second I stop, like, it's a beautiful day outside right now, and I'm in a dark room, and I don't train out there. It just it's like, go to a place and train, and then do the kind things out there. And it freaks me out whenever I go into these places, and it's like, I remember a long time ago, people were really into yin stuff, and then I was talking to these women, and they were talking about how beautiful the yin is, and I was like, well, the reason why you're so aggressive at me towards yin, because I'm like, they just come from Burning Man, and I'm like, y'all sit in the middle of a desert, spinning around in the sun for a week straight, and my
doing
little
tons of drugs that open you up. Yeah.
And I'm sitting here in a dark room writing poetry all week long. And I was like, the reason why y'all are so aggressive towards the yin is because y'all are more yang than a monster truck rally. I mean, literally, it's literally like a UFC event times a million out at Burning Man, and you're wondering why you're
100%.
thirsty for this balance, and so it's kind of like, so I think we should listen to that. It's like, all I want is this yin. I won't shut up about yin. And it's like, well, it's because your life is maybe a little young, and you should listen to that,
Well, we definitely in this culture have like a serious imbalance across the board in terms of what we understand as yang and yin. And of course, yang gets all the top billing. But yin is essentially how everything gets done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like we don't make most like very high percentage of all human relationships are not done by contract.
Yeah.
They're done by handshake, like they're done by like friend of a friend. This is all very yin, so I think the difficulty we have is not so much like pressing the pedal down hard on yang and ignoring yin. It's we don't even know what yin really is.
Right.
And because we're so obsessed with the proactivity and movement for movement's sake that yang tends to represent, or even our understanding of yang qi. Right, both of them are very flawed. In this cosmology, what the assumptions that we make about those two concepts. Yin is just pure potential. It's just constant potential that only needs a little push, just a little bit of yang to actually get it off the block. Chinese cosmology is not concerned with when you necessarily or how quickly you can get things done, but how thoroughly and how completely and how much it's in a place of mutuality and how many people can be involved. Because if you have like 100 people involved in the success of something, it's more likely to endure. But if you only have 3 people involved in the success of something, then you can lose it. But if more people have their hands in it, then it has a better chance for longevity. So that's yin, right there. But like the fact of inclusion, or that I don't need as much success here, let me share, like all of these things. This is all yin, but we hoard, and that's it can be considered a kind of perverted sort of yin, fear.
Yeah, hoarding is a stagnant. Hoarding is a stagnant yin. Hoard is a fixation.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a demon.
So you have imbalance, available in both cases, that then fold into each other, that you're so hyperactive and want to produce that you end up hoarding, so like these things, obviously they're not salient, and there's always overlap between the concepts themselves. So it's just, again, and in most cases when it comes to Chinese cosmology, it's just an opportunity to reflect on your own experience, not about discovering truth. It's about how we're generating meaning both within ourselves and then inevitably within everyone else. Like even the language we have is a shared construct. I don't own this language. Like it only exists because we're sharing it, so that's the same idea with meaning. Like I don't make meaning in a bubble. It's always related to you and me and everyone else. So
in 2 weeks, not this week's big 3, this week's big 3 is with an awesome yoga qigong master out of Thailand, and we talk like, and she's super cool. But the week after that, we're doing one with this lady, Betty Spruill. And she's like this ex-Black Panther, and now she's like a life coach, and she's all about ethical coaching. But it's all about, I was like, what is your big 3? And she was like, language. And it's really cool because in this time now where we're I was really interested when I was talking to her. I kind of met her through a friend. He's like, "You two need to meet," and she's awesome. I just love this.
See, Yin.
Yeah,
That's Yin right
yeah.
there.
And
Friend of a friend.
yeah, and she was so, I mean, just inspiring. And I mean, she does this, with people all over the world. But just, I was like, this is the most perfect thing to have right now when we are, especially someone like me, because it's like I'm switching from being such a kinetic person, which I'm not a kinetic person by nature. I sought the kinetic to balance me out, right? And but it's like I need to write, and I need to use language is used a lot more now because we're here. And so
Right.
you don't see what my feet are doing. You don't see you don't see all the little flags that I'm flying with my body. And most of most of our language is nonverbal, but or our communication. But now we're in these two-dimensional worlds, and we're on emails and all this other stuff. So it was a really cool conversation on language with her. So that was super fun.
And I've noticed that in your videos too, like that how you go about explaining what you're doing has like gotten like really succinct and like in a way that's sort of unmistakable the way you want to guide the viewer.
Well, and this is like if you're talking about that horse, right? It's like, I mean, I work with a lot of kids. I've worked with tens of thousands of children, and it's like all the time I tell them, I was like, there's not one human being, there's not one child that I can't be like, go crazy, and they'll all just be stupid, crazy kids running around like stupid, crazy kids. I don't respect it, and I'll tell them to their faces, I don't respect you being able to be crazy because that's mediocre McDonald's shit. But to be able to like, but if we can tap into that, and I'll say, okay, you have this thing, you're holding this thing, it has to stay right there, and then you're trying to not let that person get it, or you're trying to take this person's back, flag football style, but it's like here. And the second you give them a little goal, all of that craziness becomes refined, it becomes sharp, they become clean. And so it's 90% their craziness, and you can embrace it. Just give them one objective. That's all they need to turn that craziness into something clean, something pure, something focused.
So in that way, this particular moon, the Wood Horse moon, could be an exceptional time. I've thrown up a lot of cautions because that's tend to be what I do. But like in this culture, it's like, okay, take it easy, because we tend to go overboard in just about everything, right? So. Right. But in a Wood Horse moon, there's a great potential for those sorts of to tapping into that exact kind of process, where because the heavy blanket of the water snake gets released, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to try some things out. But what makes horse chi successful and noble is its capacity to accept direction and internalize a sense of direction, right? So it's that's what makes a horse majestic. They're balls of fire. That's a horse is essentially saying yang fire. It's a brush fire. That's what a horse wants to do. It's just run. But if you give a horse structure, you give it its capacity to accept training, then it can actually do incredible things. In not just not just not just perform, but like magnificent, to be absolutely gorgeous at the same time, like beautiful performance, kind of thing. So there's great potential for that in this moon as well, to put it out there in this kind of in a more positive way. But it is about how we've internalized our disciplines to this point. Also a level of creativity with wood and our ability to accept a sense of, even further sense of direction. So if people feel like lost, after this snake moon, that's totally understandable. The only thing I would say is don't jump to conclusions. Don't try to immediately fix it, but just like be patient and keep your focus on whatever it is you can keep your focus on. And if you need direction, look for it. There are ways in which, like you're talking about with situational mindfulness, or just like exploring your body in space again, would be a very rewarding experience, because the chi is going outward now. Instead of down and in with the water snake, it's now up and out. into the world. So your embodiment in the world will actually be incredibly informative. I highly recommend it. But go slow enough so you can actually internalize the lessons that you're learning, instead of like trying to burst through, because you'll either blow up the engine or burn out, or essentially end up in an accident, break a leg, all those things are real cautions. But like, if you have some appetite, like say, as we talk about, knowing how to learn how to learn. If you have the capacity to learn how to learn in any kind of situation, and you have some flexibility in that way, it could be really very productive time. Very productive time.
That's what the new complete practitioner program is. It's like, how do you learn how to learn? How do you understand your body and the principles, mind, body, and spirit? How to learn, not just get in shape, but like learn how. Yeah, just go into an environment and understand the language they're trying to use. And oftentimes they don't even know what language they're speaking. You just can see, okay, this is what's happening. Okay. So we're going to close out with this. I want to do a lightning round. I'm really into lightning rounds and in the moving into Yang. So we're going to go through each thing. So we'll count them off. I don't know all the signs. Dog. All right, go. Lightning round. What do they need to do?
Dog is the same principle that we give them with the horse moon. It's all about who you've collaborated with. Stay close and work as a team.
All right.
And work as a team.
Rooster.
Try not to get overwhelmed, and don't take on more projects. You've already got enough.
Okay. Horse.
Enjoy the freedom of movement, but don't get cocky.
Okay. Rat.
Rats should stay with their studies. Stay in that dark room.
Okay. Sheep. Sheep, rat, goat, or sheep, goat, goat.
Well, in terms of the goat, this would be the time where they are probably stick their head out a little bit. And for the next 2 moons, this moon and the goat moon, they actually have a little bit more freedom of movement. But like the horse, they should watch their step.
Rabbit.
Rabbits. Rabbits should most likely. If rabbits at this point, they should already know who they can trust, and so go on a trip with each other, like go somewhere.
Okay. So we got rabbit. Let's
tiger.
Move to tiger. Yeah, tiger.
Tiger.
Yeah.
Tiger could actually be really productive, but only if they've actually situated themselves properly. If they've gotten off the rails. They already will have known it, especially in this snake moon. They would have probably had to recover in the snake moon. But if they're well situated, then they can kind of like come out of the sleepiness. But again, just like the horse, they should probably watch their steps.
Pig.
Man, go to the beach, I guess.
Ox.
I mean, ox. Ox. Oxen could be a very good time for ox, actually. They've probably been brooding quite a lot up until this point, and in this particular moon, they could actually put in something into action.
Okay, snake.
Most of the snakes I know had a fairly good moon, this last moon, and so. I would say stay with what you got. Like you already know you have what you need. You don't need it. You don't need any more. You can probably clarify and push a little bit harder, a little bit more into what you already have, but don't try to pick up something else.
Okay, have we already done monkey? Monkey? Yeah.
No, we didn't do monkey. Monkeys. Yeah. I mean, come out of your hiding.
Okay.
Take a stroll. Okay. Enjoy the summer. Yeah.
And then dragon.
I have no idea.
Nice.
I mean, dragons, like I said, for the summer, both this moon particularly, the wood goat moon, people might be a little bit more annoying to them, but like, too many requests. But in general, it's like a good place for activity, for dragons, for horses to some extent. Anybody that's prone to outward movement and activity, I would say, tell the dragon to like take a trip somewhere, or like, but yeah, you don't need to try harder. Just enjoy the momentum that's already present. Yeah, that's kind of that's the general prescription for this moon, is like, you don't need to push harder. You think you might, but you don't actually.
Dude, I'm gonna give you a round of applause. That was good. Good lightning round right there. All right, thanks, man. Is there anything you'd like to close with? You did good, by the way. I like that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, so in terms of the things to close with, I always just come back to this idea of like, right now we're entering into a chi node called the grain matures, is what it's called. And so that means that you had grain is the central food stuff. Basically, it feeds us now and it feeds us later.
Okay.
Because when it matures, it actually gives seeds, and we save those seeds for the next year, right? So, and then we have something to eat, and then we also make sure that we have something to eat for later. And this is a really potent image, especially going into the summer, because we're not just making something because like we want to make it. It really calls our attention to the impact of our actions and what it is that we're making now and how it affects the future. It's like very, very aligned with like a 7 generations kind of mindset of like, what are we actually fostering? Because our capacity for creativity is very heightened in this moon. But if we don't use yang qi and the vigor that it provides in a good way, then it can be very destructive, incredibly destructive. And then we don't have anything for the future. And so even at the height of yang, there's this yin component that's absolutely crucial. Just like in the depths of yin, there is this little ember that we're protecting of yang, so that we can remember what it's like to be vital again. So there are parallels that we're about to go into, which are incredibly important, especially because, at this time of humanity's existence on this planet, these basic essential principles are, more important now than ever.
Man, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, everyone,
you,
take
Matt.
courses, get a reading from Scott, and show up and practice. The thing I can't put out enough is figure out how to do your version of a neighborhood watch, because the only security system that people just can't, it's the hands down the hardest to breach. I'm putting out a thing on this. Criminals trying to get off for good behavior, and they were giving talks. They were just being interviewed, like, not snitching,
interesting. So
but like, hey, what are you looking for in a house? What are you looking for in a person? What are you looking for in this? And then they did a thing on security, and the one thing that they all said is the hardest security system to breach is neighborhood watch. If they know that there's a neighborhood watch, they just don't even play around, because you can see a camera, but you can't tell who's looking around. You can't tell where it's coming from. But you can always figure out. So there's some things. So again, I'll try to share this stuff, but I'm actually not sharing this stuff in public spaces anymore. I don't put a lot of this stuff up on YouTube or anything, because people need to burn calories to take care of themselves. Because I literally want people to know that if you're not doing the work and showing up, like,
it's all BS.
Yeah, it's all bullshit. So it's like, and if it is just white noise, you take it for granted. So I know so many people that they were like, oh my God, like shelter in place happened, and I didn't realize that I need my gym to be healthy, or I miss my grocer. I miss all these people that I took for granted. And and things came to me all the time, and now I'm depressed because everything isn't, it's like, and that's what I've
everything isn't always easily available.
Yeah. And so so honestly, it's that thing, you can lead a horse to water kind of thing, but I feel that there's some things that we should lay out, but there's other things seek out, because you should be focused when you're doing it, and you shouldn't learn it from a place of fear. And so that's a big thing, because in the public space, the only way to stick out is I need to be a spectacle, and I don't like spectacles. Spectacles are cheap.
That's really the way. Yeah, we've just been trying to get each other's attention. I've seen that. I know we both see this in like so many different people who have lots of things, of really potent things to share.
Yeah.
But they need some sort of persona to make sure that they stand out in these sort of spaces. And it's like, it sort of dumbs down, what it is they have to share, in a lot of ways, because they have to play this certain kind of game in order to, get across or get someone's attention in this statistically relevant way.
Yeah, and the funny thing about it is, like, I mean, I love what's happening right now, because on all these things that I talk about and all this stuff is, I'm never going to say anything that someone isn't going to go, yeah, I know. And I'm like, I know you know now, but under stress, do you know it? And that's the only way. That's what practice is for. And I've never said anything. We all know. So secret to life, really simple, right? Align thoughts, words, actions, and breathe, right? That's literally, there you go. Okay, so now what? Because we know the secret to life.
Yeah, and that's like, Ming has that view, practice, and fruition. Like your view, and whatever your view is actually going to greatly inform the kind of practice you do. But guaranteed, view and practice meets with whatever fruition. So you can't try to, so my teacher used to say, another teacher of mine used to say, you can't get there from here. So if I'm if I'm being if I'm using a certain kind of view, but I expect a different kind of fruition, like, that's on me, like, to actually, well, what is my view here? Because if I'm just using whatever view is available in order to meet some fantasy of a fruition, then I'm completely groundless. Like, I have no leg to stand on, in order to talk about, like, not only either who you are, or to be able to advise anybody else, or to make any kind of qualitative judgment, because you don't actually even know what your view is. So because you're only thinking about the fruition as defined by, maybe some societal expectation.
Yeah, usually it's societal pressure as opposed to, like, who you really are. I mean, that was what I had a client a long time ago. I'm always joking around how my job is to try to put myself out of a job. And all I want to do is you to get strong and powerful, know you have all the tools, and then when you come to me, we're going to work on fun shit. And this one guy, he was in. I've told you this. He was going to a nutritionist trying to lose weight, and I was like, stop it. They're telling you to keep a food journal, and all you do is you write down what you ate at the end of the day, and you look at it, you feel like shit, and then you go back to your thing, and they become your therapist. I'm like, don't do that. Just write down what you want to happen, and then write down what you're about to eat. And literally, everything you need to know. Is that thing you're about to eat about to lead you to the thing you want to happen? And that's all. And the second I told him to switch the journaling process of, instead of journaling what you just ate, journal what you're about to eat. And then on every page, write down your goal on every page. And then literally look at what you're about to do, and then look at the goal and ask yourself, is that going to lead me there?
Very simple mirror.
Really simple. And simple he lost so much weight. He saved money on the nutritionist, and then I didn't have to train him. I didn't have to stand there and listen to his complaints and his guilt every day. He could come in and we could actually work on some cool shit. Yeah, it was really fun. Yeah,
that's great.
So again, we all know, but the idea is, like, most of us are trying to, like, please a coach or a parent, societal pressures, right? We want the validation or the like or something. But if we can transcend beyond that, then maybe we can actually have, like, a really strong community or something.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like personally some of the things that have been a pretty strong reflection for me in this moon is not so much of, like, trying to hold myself to some abstract goal. Like, and then but look more to, like, what are my actual motivations day to day, and actually try to not punish myself so much, for, like, what it is I wanted, but just actually look at it without that kind of judgment, just being with your own experience. This is the hardest thing to do. It's just being with one's own experience, whatever it might be. It's like, because, I know that the biggest difficulty for me is just saying, I don't know. Like just that, like, I have no idea what I feel about this. I can tell that you want me to feel a certain way about this, but, like, I actually don't know, like, I'm sorry, if you're expecting me to know, and that's, giving you kind of an experience, then we can talk about that. But that's also your experience that is important for to bring forward and to own up to. So it's just that, like being in presence of the ever unfolding nature of one's own experience, which in a water snake moon could have been a lot of different directions, man. Like definitely very true. Where there it can be some wisdom in looking into the groundlessness of our existence. Where can we say what is an identifiable self that's true throughout time? It's hard to find that. There's a lot of nourishment and maturity that comes out of that experience, that if we are able to embrace that experience in this last moon, then going into the horse moon could be fun. Like, I don't really know, but I'm going to try this, and I'm going to go at a pace where I can actually pay attention to my experience.
Matt Clark, a long time ago, I used to get really annoyed because people think I know what I'm doing. And then he even asked, he's like, he talked to me about my resiliency and this positive attitude that I tend to have. And I was like, I don't know anything, and I'm just okay with that. And I'm really good at being lost. So it's kind of like if I'm walking to my, when I walk outside and I look around and I'm looking for my car, I'm not like standing in the middle of the parking lot being like, where's my car? I'm like, all right, I remember it's over here. And I just walk to a place and then I find a point and then I go to the, it's like, you can be step confidently lost. Yeah. You know what I mean? You can be, you can still have purpose in your aimlessness. You know what I mean? You can do that.
Yeah.
And sometimes the purpose is like, I don't know where I am. I'm just going to start walking and look and just see where I'm at. Like, that's okay.
Because whatever is actually relevant, whatever is actually present in the time itself is actually relevant.
Yeah.
So there's a meaning, in the aimlessness, because there's actually meaning in existence.
Yeah.
Not like, some dude in clouds writing in a book kind of meaning, but just nature itself being a place of meaning inherently, right? So I don't need to know everything about where I'm going. I just need to be willing to look for the meaning.
Yeah.
and be in my own experience maybe than what I think I should be having. Or, like all those other models that all of us have to deal with in some way or another, even if it's to constantly be like, okay, thank you for that input, other societal model. I'm going to continue with this process of just paying attention to my experience. And so I that's one of the magical things about you, bro, is like that I've definitely known you for a while and learned a lot, and just like your willingness to find serenity, even contentment in the aimlessness, and to make the most of what you got.
I can nap through the most chaotic moments. I have slept on top of a speaker at more metal shows than than I could count. So yeah. All right, man.
I appreciate it, brother.
Yeah. I'm going to stop recording right now. Thank you everybody for listening. I don't know what the deal is. Follow us on follow Scott, follow me, subscribe to things. Yeah. Again, engage. People can comment.
Engage.
Oh, dude, people just send in questions for the next moon if you have anything. I asked for questions. I did ask a couple of the questions, and you covered a lot of them already. But again, I thank everyone that sends me questions.
It's really helpful.
A lot of your community has been communicating with me on the emails and stuff like that. So thank you to everybody that's doing that. And I've made a lot of great friends by people reaching out. Again, I've reached out to people that are in that phase of growing, and they're lifelong friends, and now they're blown up, and now I have lifelong friends that are like amazing, and then hopefully this happens to you, this happens to me, and all that stuff. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right, guys, peace out. Did I just say peace out? All right, guys. Am I allowed to
peace in?
Am I allowed to say peace out? Is that cool? All right, I'll see you.